want to talk a little bit about the legalities of the situation, which are surprisingly clear, I guess. Surprising given the discourse that's coming out of the administration, U.S. administration in recent days. The basic point is that Israel has no right to stop this boat, or any boat, from going to Gaza for the very simple reason it has no right to impose a blockade on Gaza of any sort. The people who live in Gaza, the millions of Palestinians who live in Gaza and the West Bank of the Jordan River and East Jerusalem have the same right to self-determination under international law that the Israelis do. And it's a right, along with other associated fundamental human rights, to liberty and security and so on, that they've been denied for 44 years of military and settler occupation. According to international law, this is also very clear. The occupation, locally speaking, is an act of aggression. And aggression is what the Nuremberg Tribunal said in a fundamental seminal statement, is the supreme international crime, containing within itself the accumulated evil of all the other crimes. This occupation has been condemned. I mean, you know, every institution of international law has condemned this occupation. The General Assembly of the United Nations, the Security Council of the United Nations, the International Court of Justice. This occupation, blockade being part of it, clearly constitutes a grave crime in Canada. We have a War Crimes and Crimes Against Humanity Act that prohibits this, not no aggression, but it prohibits this occupation and settlement activity, considers them a grave crime wherever they're committed in the world. And they're a crime in Canada that follows the Rome Statute, and we have a statute that makes it a crime in Canada for Israel to do what it's doing in the West Bank and in the Gaza Strip and in East Jerusalem, and this blockade is part of it. This blockade violates the Charter of the United Nations, many treaties, the Geneva Conventions, adhered to by Israel, the United States, and Canada, and about 190 other countries in the world. Israel, of course, has no right to dictate the nature of the government of Gaza, any more than the Palestinians have the right to dictate the nature of the Israeli government. The Israeli government, much less the government of the United States, has no right to insist that the government of the Palestinians recognize the legitimacy of the Zionist movement, any more than the Palestinians can require the Israeli government to recognize the legitimacy of the Hamas Charter. The only right either side has is that the other refrain from aggression. And that right is being violated by the government of Israel, not by the government of Gaza. The recent speeches by the Prime Minister of Israel and the reaction, unfortunate reaction of the Obama administration show that they have no intention of ceasing that aggression. And the administration of the United States has no intention of making them cease that aggression, except under intense pressure from the world, these world bodies. That's why they're so deathly afraid of the General Assembly's prospective resolution on Palestine in September. That's why they need everything to prevent that. And that's why this flotilla is so important, because it encourages, it draws attention to it. The borders that Netanyahu declares indefensible are the legal borders of both a Palestinian and Israeli state. Of course, it's ludicrous to think that in modern warfare, the difference between 9 miles and 36 miles, which I guess will obliterate the West Bank, is significant. With this line of reasoning, every aggressor state, of course, could argue that for the indefinite expansion of all its borders and the obliteration of every other state, if that's the logic. But if Israel's borders are indefensible, obviously the question is, what about the Palestinians? Israel allows them no borders at all. The Gaza Strip, you know, Netanyahu says 9 miles is indefensible, and the Gaza Strip is 25 miles long, and its smallest area is 4 miles wide. The whole Gaza Strip, I think the whole West Bank is maybe 15 miles wide. The whole Israeli and American discourse on this depends on us not only ignoring international law, but the equality of peoples and of their human rights to security and freedom. You won't be surprised to learn that international law treats all peoples as equals. It doesn't think that Israeli Jewish security is more important than Palestinian security. That's kind of easy. You don't need to be an expert in international law to guess that one. You hear a lot about terrorists and government. Terrorists and government. If we take another international law point, if you take the deliberate killing of civilians as the mark of terrorism, that's what international law says, the deliberate killing of civilians is terrorism. The government of Israel is about, I think, roughly 100 times more terrorist than the government of Gaza, because I think the number since the election of Hamas is something like 1,700 Gazan civilians killed to about 14 Israelis. Let alone the government of the United States, who not only underrates Israeli terrorism and Israeli apartheid in the occupied territories, but of course has more blood on its hands than all the other terrorists in the world put together. Hundreds of thousands of Iraqis have died since America's certified illegal invasion, an invasion based on lies and without any legal justification at all. They were murdered in a massive act of American terrorism. So it's kind of like the Mad Hatter's Tea Party to hear Netanyahu and Obama attempt to disqualify Hamas on the grounds of terrorism. Israel is the aggressor in the war against Gaza, and aggressors have no right to self-defense against the consequences of their aggression. This is also domestic law, international law. The US lawyers said it at Nuremberg. It's like a burglar who breaks, because of course the Germans said they were acting in self-defense when they invaded these countries. And they said it's like a burglar who breaks into a house and meets resistance and shoots the owner and then tries to claim self-defense. The owner is the only one with the right to self-defense, and in this case, that's Gaza and not Israel. I want to close by saying that I personally fully support the right of Israel to exist and to defend its legitimate borders within the ample limits of international law, but the blockade of Gaza and the whole occupation of which it's a part has nothing to do with that and goes far beyond that. It's an act of aggression, anyone has the right to defy it, and Israel has no legal right to prevent it. Thank you.